Story 1. I was out shopping with my dad at the mall one day. We were looking for some new jeans for me. As we were walking towards the food court, I asked if we could stop at Auntie Annie's. It's the best pretzel place ever. We got in line, and there was this guy in front of us causing a scene. He was complaining about his food not being what he expected and demanding another order. The staff politely asked him to move aside so other customers could order, but he refused. Then, to everyone's shock, he pulled out a cigarette and lit it up right there in line. My dad, being a police officer, decided to step in. Now, you should know my dad isn't exactly intimidating. He's only 5'7", but he's been on the force for over 20 years. He approached the guy and asked what the problem was. The guy looked at my dad and said, "Don't worry about it and go back in line." My dad, trying to keep things calm, said, "Sir, are you aware that it's strictly prohibited to smoke on mall grounds?" In response, the guy blew smoke right in my dad's face. Can you believe it? My dad asked him again to put out the cigarette. The guy laughed and said, "What are you, a cop?" Before my dad could answer, the guy shoved him. I was sitting there, shocked and embarrassed at the same time. I'd never seen anyone treat my dad like that before. My dad stood up, and the guy tried to punch him again. But this time, my dad was ready. He wrapped his arms around the guy's torso and tackled him to the ground. In seconds, the guy was in handcuffs. I just sat there, stunned. In all my 14 years, I'd never actually seen my dad arrest someone. It was surreal. As mall security was walking over, my dad started reading the guy his rights and listing off his charges. "Dad, you're under arrest for failure to comply with an officer's demand, assault on a peace officer, and disorderly conduct. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights as I have read them to you?" The guy, "This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything wrong." "Dad, sir, you assaulted a police officer and were smoking in a prohibited area. These are serious offenses." The guy, "You can't prove anything. I want a lawyer." "Dad, that's your right, and you'll have the opportunity to speak with one soon." By this time, a small crowd had gathered around us. Some people were filming with their phones, while others were just staring in disbelief. "Me, Dad, are you okay?" "Dad, I'm fine. Don't worry. This is just part of the job sometimes." As the mall security arrived, they took over watching the guy while my dad filled out some paperwork. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was incredibly proud of my dad for how he handled the situation. On the other hand, I was still a bit shaken up by what I just witnessed. A lady who had been standing behind us in line came up to us. "Lady, officer, I just wanted to say thank you for what you did. That man was being completely unreasonable, and I'm glad you were here to handle it." "Dad, thank you, ma'am. I'm just doing my job." After everything settled down, my dad turned to me with a small smile. "Dad, so, still want that pretzel?" I couldn't help but laugh. Leave it to my dad to try and bring things back to normal after all that excitement. Me? Yeah, I think I need it now more than ever. As we finally got our pretzels and sat down to eat, I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. It was one thing to know your dad is a cop, but it's a whole other experience to actually see him in action. I had a new appreciation for what he does every day to keep people safe. The rest of our shopping trip was uneventful compared to what happened at Auntie Annie's. As we were driving home, I turned to my dad. "Me, Dad, I just wanted to say, I'm really proud of you. What you did back there was pretty cool." "Dad, thanks, kiddo. But remember, being a police officer isn't about being cool. It's about protecting people and upholding the law, even when it's not easy or popular." I nodded, understanding a little bit more about my dad's job and the responsibilities that came with it. It was definitely a mall trip I'd never forget. Story 2. To start, This is about the company I work for and a trip I took because I had to wire a building for a computer network because the building owner wouldn't. Backstory. Our company was moving a remote site to a new building. As the information technology specialist for the company, I was asked to look at the new building and get network ports marked out. The landlord refused to put in any low-voltage lines, and we got quotes, but they were thousands of dollars. Enter me, my car, and 4 boxes of Category 6 plenum. It's about an 8-hour drive, and I was doing about 30 drops. Not a ton, but still a few days' work in some place that's already built up. And it's drop ceiling with insulation on top. Messy, itchy work. Story. Day 1. We get there Monday morning at the start of the month. It's actually a cool summer morning, and we're from further south, so no one notices the air conditioning not working for about an hour. Slowly, the building begins heating up. It gets to 80 degrees by noon, 85 at 3 p.m. The rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows are greenhouses. It's absolutely miserable. We've been told by the workers still on site that the leasing company was informed there was no air conditioning in our building 3 weeks ago. The other thing is there are still workers on site. The building isn't completed. So much for being ready for a handover day 1. Day 2. We're getting agitated. It's 80 degrees in the morning when we first walk in. It's sweltering. The other guy that came up with me is the facilities manager. He's yelling at people over the phone to fix the air conditioning. We're all exhausted from the heat by 3 p.m. I found a 4-foot hole in the ducting when I opened the ceiling tile. The air conditioning was blowing, but there was no cold air. We are told the compressor is broken. Day 3. More of the same. Miserable in the morning. I'm finally getting the last lines punched in on the patch panel. The air conditioning technicians arrive about 10 a.m. They finally fix the unit at 2 p.m. We asked them what they did. They said, "A lot of things." We again said, "What did you do?" The reply was, "We can't tell the tenants." Red flag alert. We contacted our realtor. She said she would look into what was done. She sends an email later that night that says, they changed the refrigerant from R22 to R410A. I told the facilities guy, "No way, dude. That's like putting gasoline in a diesel motor. They'd have to change out the entire system." They didn't do that in 4 hours. They basically duct taped and used a miracle spray on that thing to get it back together, and it will run poorly for a month or so, then give out, and we'd be stuck with a replacement. Day 4. Still no running water to some areas, still workers on site. The air conditioning can't keep up with the noonday sun, and it still hits around 80 degrees by the end of the day. Air conditioning runs continuously. We're packing up all the stuff we moved in and moving out. I notice all the fire sprinklers look like they have moved, and the metal protection around the drop tile has fallen to the floor. The sprinklers are no longer protruding from the tiles in places. In others, they are quite a bit lower than they were. Yep, the air conditioning technicians stood on the fire sprinklers to fix their lousy ductwork. We are looking for a friendly way out. We contact the landlord and say, "You haven't delivered a finished building. We're moving out. The lease is broken." Landlord has a 36-page lease. Landlord won't let us out of the lease. It's 5 years. This is not starting off well. We get in contact with the corporate lawyer and the realtor. They both agree we're kind of stuck. We are desperate for any way out. I started looking at the fire system. I used to run all kinds of low-voltage lines, fire, security, etc. There is no fire panel in our portion of the building. No smoke detectors are hooked up to anything. More red flags. One of our employees that was moving the heavy gear says, "Oh yeah, I meant to mention, I never saw any building permits anywhere." Ding ding ding. They did this build-out, including demolition, running new plumbing and power lines, and destroying the fire system, without a city permit. Cue the call to the city inspector's office. Day 5. I wasn't here for this part, but the facilities manager told me this. The city inspector pulled the permits for the building. There weren't any. He finds multiple violations of city code. Red-tagged our area, removed the certificate of occupancy. When I told him to check the fire system like you said, he just goes, "Oh no, I have to make a call, He calls the fire marshal. Day 8. Fire marshals arrive on scene. Find no active alarm system in our portion of the building. Red tag. Find the sprinkler riser for the entire building in our area. No water pressure. Condemned the entire building. Basically, they wouldn't let us out of the building because we signed a lease, even though they never delivered a building in any semblance of working order. Called the building inspector, got them in trouble, who then called the fire marshal, who condemned the entire building. They are still trying to fight us over it, but we're pushing for them not only to refund the deposit and the rent, which they have already done, but for all the time spent moving gear in and out, and all the wiring. Our lawyer says they don't have a leg to stand on, and he's happy for them to pay his fees as well. Story 3. I'll start by saying that I have a baby face and have always been mistaken for someone who's very young, even after graduating high school. I've also had random people approach me asking if I remember them from somewhere because I always get mistaken for someone they know from somewhere else. During this incident, most people might say he had just made a mistake, but the way he spoke to me, even after I told him he'd made a mistake, he refused to believe me and even started making claims of theft. This happened when the actual shoplifter was also in the store actually taking things. Anyway, I had stopped at Walmart to buy myself a quick lunch for work. Note that I was still wearing my teal color themed uniform shirt from my job that reads House Depot Cashier Appreciation Month, black slacks and shoes, along with a purple cap that also has the same logo and store name written on it, while wearing my black one-shoulder work bag that I use to carry my work-related things and lunch. I had just paid for everything and was heading for the exit when a security guard stopped me and asked to check my things, which I let him do and even held out my receipt to prove that I had paid for everything. Security 1. Have you paid for everything yet? Me still holding my receipt. Yes, here it is right here. You can look it over if you like. Security 1. How do I know it's not a fake one or from a different store? Me. Because I just finished paying for it. And if you ask that cashier over there who rang me up, she can tell you I paid for everything. Security 1. I'm asking because I've gotten reports that there have been thefts around here lately, and the report matches your description. Me. I've shopped here sometimes by myself, but most times I come here with my family, and I've never stolen anything from here or from any store. Besides, today was the only time I was available to stop by to get lunch. Security 1. I was told you were in the store yesterday night. Me confused. I wasn't here last night. I was at home all day. Security 1. If you keep bad-mouthing me, I'll have you banned from this store. Now unload your bag and give back all the things you just took off the shelves now. Me. I'm telling the truth. If you want to go through my bag and check, I'm not going to stop you, but I haven't stolen anything from the store. I just got off work and was just coming in here to boo. Security 1. I've had enough of your nonsense. I've been here all day, and I've seen you repeatedly come in and exit the store with your bag loaded with things that you didn't pay for. I'm calling the cops to have you arrested and getting management to have you banned permanently. I tried to reason with him, but he kept ignoring me and radios over management, as well as another security to detain me. They reach me and ask what's happening. Security 1. I've caught the shoplifter you told me about. Me. I'm not shoplifting. I'm just buying lunch for work. I've got the receipt to prove that I haven't stolen anything. Manager, may I see the receipt? I hand him the receipt, which Security 1 claims is a fake and refuses to believe I wasn't lying, while Security 2 was double-checking and matching everything in my bag with the receipt. Manager, everything in her bag matches up with the receipt. She's not lying or shoplifting. Please stop restricting her from leaving. Security 1. But I swear I saw her walking in and out of the store all day and even the past few days. Me, I already told you the past few days I've been either at home or college, and today was the only day I was available to stop by to get lunch, and I've clearly not been walking in and out if I'm still in uniform. This made Security 1 fall silent before saying, she's clearly lying now. She just said she was here all day, and now she's claiming she was at work. Security 2. No, that's what you said. She's only said that she hadn't been available to come here the past few days and up till just now. Manager, if you've seen who's been shoplifting all day, why didn't you bother to stop them or report them, and just now decided to step in? Security 1 was about to say something else when manager stops him due to a call over the radio about needing security and management near the back of the store. Manager has Security 1 go with him to see what the disturbance is and Security 2 stay with me to hear my side of the story. After they walk away, I tell my side of the story, and as I finish, I get a text from my dad asking why I'm not home yet, to which I speak to my dad, and he tells me he's coming to pick me up. After this, Security 1 and manager are dragging a struggling, maybe high school-age girl with a backpack full of electronics and more, dressed in loose clothes and tan pants with a pink cap, as well as a few police cars pulling up behind us. I assume maybe they were called when they caught her. After manager and Security 1 finished speaking to the police and the girl was taken away, Security 2 confirms my story, and Security 1 tries to walk away as quickly as he could. Manager stops him and asks him to apologize to me, which he did, and the manager told me I was allowed to leave and not banned from the store. As I stepped outside of the store, my dad pulled up, and I told him everything was already sorted out. He didn't ask much and just took me home. A few days later, I was there shopping again with my parents, and Security 1 was no longer there. I'm not surprised if he was fired for making false claims as well as threatening someone for a crime they didn't commit. Story 4. It started when I noticed my wife acting strange. She was losing weight, staying out late, and always seemed jittery. I had my suspicions, but I didn't want to believe it. One day, I overheard her on the phone talking about meeting someone. That's when I decided to follow her. She led me straight to this guy's house. I waited outside for hours until she came out looking completely out of it. That's when I knew she was using drugs. I confronted her about it when she got home. We need to talk. I know what's going on. Wife, what are you talking about? The drugs. I followed you today. She broke down crying and admitted everything. She told me about this guy who had introduced her to methamphetamine and got her hooked. I was furious, but I tried to stay calm. Who is this guy? Where can I find him? Wife, he works at the grocery store on Main Street. Please don't do anything stupid. I assured her I wouldn't, but I had every intention of confronting this guy. The next day, I went to the store and asked for him. When he came out, I pulled him aside. I know what you've been doing with my wife. Drug dealer, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Cut the act. I know you're selling her drugs. Here's the deal: you stop contacting her, and I'll walk away. Otherwise, things will get ugly. Drug dealer, all right? I'll leave her alone. We shook hands, and I left, thinking that was the end of it. But I was wrong. 2 months later, I lost my job, and my wife was in rehab. Meanwhile, this guy was still out there, selling drugs like nothing had happened. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I called his workplace's corporate office. I have information about one of your employees selling drugs out of the store. 2 days later, he was fired. But that wasn't enough for me. I started following him, taking notes on his routine. After a month, I had a detailed schedule of his drug deals. I called up a friend in the state police. Hey, I've been following this drug dealer. I know it's not exactly legal, but I've got some information you might find interesting. My friend advised against it, but said I wasn't breaking any laws. So I gave him all the details where the guy picked up his drugs, his route, and most importantly, that he drove past an elementary school during his deals. A few days later, the drug dealer was pulled over in a school zone and arrested. He got 12 years in prison. I couldn't help myself. I wrote him a letter explaining everything. Remember me? I'm the guy whose wife you got hooked on drugs. I warned you to stay away, but you didn't listen. Now you know why you lost your job and ended up in prison. Actions have consequences. As for my wife, she got clean, and I tried to forgive her. I really did. But after 3 years of trying, I couldn't do it anymore. We ended up getting divorced. It wasn't an easy decision, and the revenge didn't immediately make me feel better. But looking back now, I don't regret what I did. That guy ruined lives, and he needed to be stopped. Recently, I heard he got out of prison. I've seen him around town a few times and tried to talk to him, but he always runs away. Last I heard, he moved to another city, found religion, and married an older woman. Good for him, I guess. Some people might think I went too far, but I don't see it that way. He hurt my family, and I gave him a chance to walk away. He chose not to take it. I'm not losing any sleep over what happened to him. I know there's always a chance he might come looking for revenge, but I'm not worried. If he wants to settle things, he knows where to find me. But something tells me he's learned his lesson. Story 5. This happened just at the beginning of the COVID-19 situation, and there were some legal issues involved that are now resolved. Here's a little background about me. I'm a petite, somewhat older lady 5 feet tall and 49 years old who looks rather unassuming. Most of my adult life, I've worked in nearly every aspect of retail, from customer service to, now, owning a mid-size retail sporting goods store with a couple of partners. So, I tend to give off that customer service vibe. I usually try to help people if I can, as long as they are polite. Additionally, I've been training in martial arts for more than 20 years and teach on the side as a way to give back to my community. My store is about a block away from a major big box retailer rhymes with tall cart, and I often stop there because we always supply our employees with drinks and snacks to boost morale. Our management shirt is black and gray with a red logo embroidered over the pocket. I also have a mask that displays the name of our store across it. The uniform of the store I was in is either blue or yellow vest with large lettering on the back. Now, on to the story. One fine morning, on the way to my store, I stopped to pick up some soda and chips for my team and some janitorial supplies to hold me over until my next shipment arrived. It was early, so there were very few shoppers and not many employees around. As I was filling my cart with soda, I noticed a man who looked fairly average. If a bit pudgy, we'll call him Kevin, walking up the aisle toward where I had just finished loading a few cases into my cart. I thought he wanted some soda, so I moved on to the next item on my list. I went to the next aisle and noticed that this man had followed me. Inwardly, I sighed because I could tell from his stance and the look in his eyes that he was not happy. "Kevin, what is your problem? You just walked away from me. I need some help." Since I always try to de-escalate aggressive behavior, I put on my sweet voice and said, "I'm sorry, did you have a question about insert my store name, which is written boldly across my mask?" Kevin: "What? No, where is the Diet Mountain Dew? Why would I want to know anything about store name, you foolish cow?" Me: "Well, maybe because I work there and not here. I have noticed that this store has not had Diet Mountain Dew for a while. Maybe you should ask an employee if they are back ordered." Kevin: "Nonsense, you work here. I see you here every week." As he said this, he advanced toward me. I stepped back a few paces. Me: "Sir, please keep your distance. We are in a pandemic." Kevin: "How dare you? How dare you assume my pronouns? You are a piece of trash. Get me my Diet Mountain Dew." I was taken aback. I apologize for making assumptions, but it doesn't change the fact that I don't work here. What would you prefer to be called? Kevin: "I prefer he/him/his, and don't you forget it. Anything else is hate speech. I know you have Diet Mountain Dew in the back. Now go get it, or I will have you fired for being a hateful person." Me: "The word sir is a formal way of speaking to someone who identifies as he/him/his. Anyway, I still don't work here. I will go find you an employee." At this point, 2 mistakes were made, one by me and one by Kevin. Mistake 1. I turned my back on an aggressor who was still agitated. Looking back, the only reason I can give is that I really wanted to get back to what I was doing so I could get to my store. And I honestly did not consider him a physical threat. Mistake 2. Kevin put his hands on me. He grabbed my shoulder in an attempt to turn me around, I suppose. At this point, 20 years of martial arts training kicked in, and somehow Kevin ended up face down on the ground in a hammerlock with my knee pressed into his back. Using my best martial arts instructor voice, I yelled, "Attention, any employee. Please call 911 for the police. I have been assaulted." After a moment of shock, Kevin started squealing. Not yelling, not crying, just squealing like a piglet. Suddenly, where there were no employees, at least 6 swarmed us, including the manager. Since I had no idea what Kevin would do, I refused to release my hold on him until the police arrived. The local police department showed up. I recognized one officer as a regular customer at my store, who had also expressed interest in me teaching his child at the dojo. He looked at me, then looked at Kevin squealing on the ground, and I could see the amusement in his eyes. I let go of the squealing piglet, Kevin. That's when his tirade started, of course. "Kevin? Oh my goodness. Officers, this is a hate crime. Arrest her. Arrest her. She threw me to the ground because I'm gay. I only wanted to get some Diet Mountain Dew. She's the devil." The officer looked at him about 6 feet, 180 pounds, and then at me 5 feet, 97 pounds, and just raised his eyebrows. Since no one really witnessed what happened, I asked the manager if the officers could review their security recordings. The aftermath of the whole thing was this: we were both briefly detained. The officers reviewed the tapes and asked if I wanted to press charges in front of Kevin, which I declined to do. Kevin started whining and saying, "It's not fair, she used hate speech against me." The officer I knew asked, "What did she say, sir?" And, of course, Kevin spouted his nonsense and started accusing the officer of using hate speech. They were better at de-escalating than I am and got him calm. One of the employees helpfully brought up a dictionary on their phone for poor Kevin. He read what the word "sir" meant and kind of crumpled in on himself. I wish I could say it ended there. Unfortunately, Kevin eventually figured out where I do work. He wrote reviews accusing all of us of being hateful. He began to call incessantly and made some threats, which escalated into him coming to my store, causing some property damage, and getting arrested. This time, I did press charges and sued for libel and defamation. The officer signed his daughter up at my dojo. Story 6. Backstory: my dad is a high school assistant principal. It's currently his first year at a new school, which is much better than the last one he was at. The previous school was overcrowded, had a significant issue with illegal substances, and many of the students needed free or reduced lunches. Fights broke out almost every week, and my dad had to suspend students nearly every day. His new school is much better, with just 2 incidents all year, one involving an autistic student who had an episode, and the other is the story I'm about to share with you fine Redditors. To clarify, any dialogue I might include won't be 100% accurate since the original incident took place about a month ago. I'm not entirely sure what started it, but either the bus driver accidentally bumped into the entitled girl while dropping her off, or he told her off for saying something rude. Either way, the entitled girl got upset and texted her entitled mother about it. The entitled mother came out of her home and started yelling at the bus driver, who just drove off. The next morning, the bus driver went to pick up the entitled girl, but when he got to her driveway, she wasn't there. Instead, the entitled mother, entitled brother, and entitled sister were. The bus driver opened the door to ask where the entitled girl was, and then the entitled mother, entitled brother, and entitled sister all boarded the bus. The entitled girl is a junior in high school, I believe. Her older brother was around 22, and her older sister was in college. These people were all adults. All 3 of them started screaming at the poor bus driver, threatening him, calling him slurs, and berating him. The rest of the kids on the bus were understandably scared. As soon as the entitled mother, entitled brother, and entitled sister got off, The bus driver sped away. What the entitled family forgot to consider was that there are 4 high-definition cameras equipped with audio sensors on every bus in our county. They caught everything. The bus driver got the rest of the kids to school and went straight to the front office. My dad, the assistant principal, was furious. He got the video feed from the bus, called the school police officer, who then called in additional police officers, and had the entitled mother arrested for malicious harassment, intimidation, trespassing, and a few other charges. The principal let my dad take control of the situation because he knows my dad doesn't mess around with these kinds of things. My dad had the entitled girl switch to a different bus route and had the entitled brother, entitled sister, and entitled mother permanently banned from school grounds. He also gave the bus driver a month of paid time off. Working with a lawyer, my dad got statements from most of the kids who were on the bus, and they decided to press charges against only the entitled mother and entitled brother. The entitled brother was apparently in the middle of a 6-month probationary period for a different crime, so he was essentially guaranteed jail time. Going into the trial, which took place 2 weeks ago, nobody expected the entitled mother to get more than a week in jail, if that. My dad, the principal, and the school police officer were in the courthouse in case they needed to be called as witnesses. They were not. The bus driver's lawyer made his remarks, and the entitled mother's lawyer just tried to reduce her sentence, knowing they were going to lose. The videos weren't even shown to the judge because there was so much other evidence. The judge surprised everyone by giving the entitled mother a 30-day sentence. He made it very clear that she had threatened the life of a man, endangered children, and trespassed on school property, all because the bus driver had told off her daughter. He emphasized that she should be punished accordingly. My dad and the principal were trying not to cheer. But that wasn't even the best part. The entitled brother skipped his trial. The trials were back-to-back, so there was no way he could have forgotten. The judge immediately issued a bench warrant for his arrest. He was caught the next day at the entitled mother's house and, when brought before the judge, was given a year in prison for breaking his probation, skipping his trial, and for the same charges as the entitled mother. As for the entitled girl, she switched schools. My dad has told this story to almost everyone he knows because he finds the karma hilarious.